Welcome back, guys, and in this video this is where it's going to start to get a little fun. This is actually where I really like to get when I teach new developers. This is where things start to become really fun. So in this video we're going to be talking about arrays. So again, we're going to still be in these playgrounds for right now, so let's go ahead and start by opening up a new playground. We'll make a blank one. You can see for some reason my computer just will not make these full screen. And for this one, let's call it arrays are cool. Cool. Okay, so what is an array? So up to this point, we've been talking about singular pieces of data like a name or a number or something like that. Well, what if we have a collection of data that we want to store together? Well, that's where arrays come in. So an array can be a collection of anything. Let's go ahead and start by creating one here. And in this case, we're going to create a variable. We're going to call it fruits. By the way, arrays are still variables, and we're still going to use them kind of the same way. So we're going to set this equal to, and we're going to put these brackets here. So these brackets represent that we're going to create an array and we're going to fill it with data. So right now it's complaining that we don't have anything in the array, so let's go ahead and start doing that. So we'll create a couple fruits. We'll call it banana, apple, orange maybe, grapes, and kiwi, right? We don't love kiwi. Okay, cool. So now we have an array of fruits. So we've got 5 fruits in here, and what the heck do we do with them? Well, there is, again, I know I say this a lot, but I'm showing you all things that you're going to be using in programming constantly, and arrays are just a fundamental, foundational part of programming. We use them all the time. So this could be anything. It could be an array of names. Maybe think, for example, like if you were writing some software for like HR or something like that at your job, you would need to have an array of employees. So there would be all sorts of different employee names and information in there, maybe their ages and all that stuff. So we would store all of that in an array. So in this case, we're going to do an array of fruits. So now, how do we reference things inside of the fruits? So let's go ahead and start there. Let's say that we want to access the first thing in this fruits array. We want to get banana. So to do that, this is what the syntax looks like. We're going to put fruits. We're going to put 2 brackets, kind of like what we did to fill these in with. And we're going to put the index of the item that we want to reference. So let's put 0. You might be thinking, well, why 0? Like banana is the first thing in the array. Well, in Swift and in a lot of languages actually, arrays start at an index of 0. So this would be 0, this would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3, this would be 4. Welcome to programming. It can be a little confusing sometimes. So it's not 1. If we did 1 like this, we would be getting apple. And so likewise, by doing 0, we would be getting banana. Cool, let's go ahead and run that and make sure that that's correct. And sure enough, over here, we get banana and apple, exactly what we'd expect. So that's cool, but that doesn't really do anything super cool for us. Why not just make 5 different variables, right? Like, why not just do what we did before and do fruit 1, fruit 2, fruit 3? Well, because we can now combine arrays with the concept from the last lesson, which was loops, and we could do really cool things with them. So let's go down a couple lines and let's kind of revert back to the example that we had in the last video. Let's create a variable, let's call it I, and let's set it equal to 0. This is where things are going to get cool. So now we're going to create another while loop, and we're going to say while I is less than, and if we think about this for a second, we would want to make sure that I is less than the length of this array. So this array has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things in it. So we're going to want to loop through the array and get every single object. So for now, let's just say while I is less than 5, we want to do this logic. And what we're going to do here is we're going to print fruits, and we're going to print fruits I. All right, let's pause for a second. What in the heck is going on? So right here, we did fruits 0, and that obviously equaled banana. Well, we can reference the index of a fruit using an integer variable, which is pretty cool. So right now we have var I equals 0, and by putting I inside of these brackets here, we're effectively doing the same thing that we're doing here because I is equal to 0. So you're starting to see this is like real programming that we're doing now. This is pretty cool stuff. So now if we're wanting to print every item in this array, we're going to need to increment I each time that we print a certain fruit, kind of like we did in the last video. So we would now say I equals I plus 1. Now, I know I keep doing this over and over again, but with programming, repetition is everything. So let's kind of break this down. We've got this array of fruits. We're going to set this variable I equal to 0. And it's going to come in here and it's going to say 0 less than 5. Yes, 0 is less than 5. So print fruits index 0, which is banana. And then add 1 to I. So now I would be equal to 1. So it's going to reset as 1 less than 5. Yes, it is. So fruits 1 is what it's going to print, which is apple, and then repeat again. So I is now equal to 1 plus 1, which is 2. So it's 2 less than 5, sure is. Fruits 2, which is orange. Hopefully this is starting to make sense to you. So let's go ahead and run that and make sure that it does what we wanted it to do. Well, down here in the console, we can see that it in fact did do exactly what we wanted it to do. Banana, apple, orange, grapes, kiwi. Really cool stuff. Now, let's say that we want to add another item to the array. Let's say it's, what am I missing here? Let's come up with another one. Lemon. Cool, so now I've got another one in here. Well, if we were to go ahead and run this code, we're going to notice that actually nothing changes. Lemon is not in this list. Why is that? Some of you might be picking up on this right now. So the reason for that is because we did not change the value of the end point of the loop. So the loop is still going for I is less than 5, but this array now has 6 items in it. So what do we do about that? Well, like you're probably thinking, oh, let's just go ahead and change it to 6. Yeah, we could do that, but instead, why not let the computer work for us? We don't actually have to maintain this number right here. That's a cool thing about programming, is that we could say instead, while I is less than fruits dot count. So this is really neat because the fruits array is going to keep track of the length of itself, and it's going to give you access to that in this dot count property. Remember a couple videos ago we were talking about properties. Well, this is another property of fruits that you don't got to worry about. It'll always be there, and it will always be whatever the length of it is. So I could go add 5 more elements here, and it's still going to update itself, and it'll be 11. So now I don't got to worry about it anymore. All I got to do is just go add new elements here, and this is just going to update itself. So if we run that, boom, we get lemon at the bottom. So that's pretty cool. Now, this is one way of dealing with loops, but when we deal with arrays, there's actually an even cooler way of looping through the objects of an array. So let's go ahead and put a comment here. If you haven't picked up on this by now, hopefully you've started to notice what this is. Every time I put a / that's just a comment. We can put whatever English or heck, whatever language you speak, you can put there. Hopefully it's English if you're watching this video. But you could put whatever text you want here, and this is just for humans. This is just for us to read. The compiler, the program, is just going to ignore whatever you put here. This is literally just for your own reference. You'll realize as you advance in your programming career that the more comments you leave, the better, because you're going to come back and look at your code later, and you're going to be like, what was I thinking? What was going on here? And if you left yourself a little bit of information in that file in the form of a comment to see what's going on, then that could help you with whatever it is that you're doing. So anyways, we'll put here that this is the while loop approach. Cool, so that's one approach. Now let's go down a couple lines. I'm going to show you the even more functional and cool approach, and just a really cool thing that we get access to in Swift. By the way, real quick, let me pause and just say, if this is not really making sense to you yet, one, that's okay. This is going to happen. Like in programming, you're going to hit little obstacles where you're like, man, this is a lot to take in at once. Let me just remind you of 2 things. One, this is extremely normal, and everybody goes through it. It can be tough sometimes to pick up on programming, but I'm trying to walk you through it as best as I possibly can. But it's very normal. Sometimes you need to watch things a couple times. But the second thing I want to remind you is why you're doing this in the first place. Remember that this is going to be, whether you're doing this because you're looking for a new career, or you're looking to make more money, or you're looking to start your own project, just keep that goal in mind. That's what I was doing whenever I was doing the same thing. Just try to keep that in mind. Remember why we're doing this, and let's just keep pushing through. So if you need to go back and rewatch that a couple times and maybe write a couple of your own loops, I would encourage you to do that to keep trying until it makes sense. So anyways, let's go ahead and move on though to the next approach with looping through arrays. And this is going to actually be the more common approach. We're going to do what's called like a for loop. And these are a whole lot easier to write because we don't got to worry about managing some little variable called I or setting some condition in the while loop. We don't got to do any of that. So what does this look like? So right here, let's leave a comment and let's say the for loop approach. So literally all we have to do here is write a couple words and it will do everything for us. So let's write this with me. For fruit in fruits, and let's put our little curly braces there, and let's print fruit. Oops, sorry, fruit, singular fruit. This is literally all we have to do. And you might be thinking like, well, okay, whoa, what is going on? What is fruit? I don't see that anywhere. All I see is fruits. So where is fruit coming from? Where's the singular version coming from? Okay, so let me break it down for you. So when we do a for loop like this in Swift, you get to name this whatever you want. This is your choosing. You're naming each individual item of the collective array. So I decided to just name it the singular version of the array, which is just a fruit. So what's going on here is inside of the loop, I have access to fruit, which represents each object in this array. Let's go ahead and run this just so you kind of see what's going on, and then we'll break it down a little bit further. So you see here that this was the first loop that we did. This is the while loop. Actually, let me show you a cool little trick real quick. We don't really want to worry about this code too much right now. So if you highlight all of this code, since we're kind of done with it, you can highlight all of it and do Command/, and that's going to just, we call this like commenting it out, which is kind of like what you did here. So you can always come back to this code later if you want and uncomment it. It's the same thing, just Command/ and it'll go back. But we don't want to run this in the meantime, so we'll just go ahead and comment that out. This is really common. You'll do this a lot when you're debugging and whatnot. So anyways, let's come back to this and let's run it again. So we effectively had the same result that we did with the original loop, but just with a whole lot less code and with more functional code, in my opinion. So again, instead of having to manage a number and access each index, what we get with a for loop is access to each object. So it's just going to go through the array here. Let me go ahead and move this down a little bit. So it's going to go through the array and it's going to print banana, and then it's going to reset, and then fruit will be apple, and then it's going to reset, and then fruit will be orange, and then it's going to reset, and so on and so forth. And that'll just keep happening until it hits the end of the array. And again, the cool thing is we don't got to manage the count. We don't have to manage the I. We don't got to do any of that. This is just going to do everything that we need for us. So again, let me reiterate, go through this a couple times, play around with it, add a couple more items to the array, maybe make another array of car brands or whatever you want, and just keep running through this a couple times. We're going to get much more hands-on experience with this in the next video. So if you want to just move on and just keep plugging away, as we do more examples, it's just going to make more and more sense, and you're gonna have a much better understanding of it. So let's keep moving along. That's the end of this video. Let's go ahead and get to the next one.